It's an honor to always not only sit in the chair for Tony Perkins, but it's an incredible honor to have him on the program with us. He is part of a group of conservative leaders who have signed on to a call for House Republicans to begin impeachment inquiries against President Biden. The memo includes 13 points as to why impeachment is necessary, including the president's role in his son Hunter's foreign business schemes, as well as suppressing free speech and targeting political opponents. Well, I'm extremely honored to have my next guest, Tony Perkins, the president of the Family Research Council. Welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, thanks, Jody, and thanks for filling in for me. You're doing a great job.
Well, listen, it is an indescribable honor, Tony, to sit in the chair and behind the microphone that you do such an amazing job week in and week out. I'm very grateful. Listen, before we get into this topic, you have been taking some time off. Your schedule is absolutely crazy. You need some downtime. But in the midst of this, you also have had some issues with your dad, who's just gone through some very serious surgery. Can you give us a quick update on how he's doing?
Yeah, thanks, Jody. And I certainly would appreciate the prayers of our viewers and listeners. You know, back when we had our men's conference in Houston back in June, my dad was over there with me with my youngest son, and he fell. And coming back, after he came back, he did some, went into the doctor and they did some exams and found a tumor on his brain. And so last Friday they removed it. And so I've been spending the nights with him in the hospital, trading off with my siblings as we've given him basically around the clock being with him, because it's kind of left him impaired from his ability right now to speak and communicate. And so it's coming back, but it's going to take a process. So we're grateful the surgery went well, and now it's just the long road to of recovery. So I'd certainly covet the prayers of our viewers and listeners for my dad, Richard.
All right, Tony, and listen, all of you, you just heard it. This is an extremely serious surgery that Richard has gone through. And I'm going to call on all of our FRC family to reach out and pray for Richard and Tony and the family here as Tony's dad goes through a long road to recovery ahead of him. All right, Tony, let's jump in for a few moments to discuss the movement that you and other conservative leaders are calling on House Republicans to begin an impeachment inquiry against the president. 13 points in particular. Kind of give us the breakdown of this.
Well, Jody, it's more of a word of support for the Republicans that are already doing this work. I mean, most of this is based upon the evidence that has been produced as a result of the hearings that the various committees have been having over the last several months. And so we're just saying, look, the evidence there appears to be quite monumental in terms of showing that Joe Biden was sitting on I would have to say, a criminal enterprise. And you mentioned two of the things that really rise to the top. There's a lot of things we could talk about the failure of a president being, for instance, Afghanistan is one of the points listed. But when you look at intentionality, and when you mentioned the fact that he repeatedly said he was not a part of his son's business dealings. Well, now we know the big guy was. There's enough evidence that has come forth to say the president was not only knowledgeable about it, but facilitated these business dealings. And then on top of that, I think for me, what seals it is the evidence that is making its way through the courts, the Fifth Circuit, saying that there's enough evidence there that they have issued an order saying that the Biden administration can no longer collude with social media to silence its critics. Now, that's a very, very serious offense, Jody. As you know, the First Amendment is watertight in terms of the government suppressing the free speech of American citizens. And we have the evidence that shows that they did it when it came to the COVID vaccine, when they came to the COVID virus, and when it came to the elections. Anyone who was raising questions about the elections. And we now know that a lot of the things that people were saying were in fact true. And so those two issues alone would be enough for the House to proceed when you look at the illegal and corrupt activities of President Biden and his family and this administration. And by the way, go back. I can throw in there the laptop as well that we're told was, Russian propaganda. We know that is not true, although they used their influence in the campaign to go to national security, quote unquote, experts to get them to sign on and say, oh, yeah, this is just Russian propaganda. Again, we now know that was absolutely false.
Yeah, it's really stunning, and I just found something today that I was not previously aware of, that it appears as though President Biden, when he was vice president, was using false names, Robert L. Peters, among others, evidently, to communicate some of this stuff that you're talking about. It gets deeper and deeper and more ugly, it seems, with every passing day. Let me ask you real quickly. We've got about 30 seconds or so left. Do you think this is going to end up being a pretty significant issue in the upcoming election?
I certainly hope that it is. I think the American people have a right to know what this president was involved in. We know they had all these inquiries, over 50 investigations into President Trump that delivered nothing. And they're continuing to go after him with these series of indictments. Still nothing. We know that there's stuff there on President Biden and his family. And I think the American people need to know all of the facts, and we support the Republicans in the House in doing just that. That's what they're doing. We're just saying, keep at it.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. Tony Perkins, great to see you. Thank you for joining us, and God bless you and your dad. We'll certainly be praying.